Hey, welcome to episode number 108 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording March the 7th, 2021. My name's Eric. I'm the host of the show, based in Southern Ontario. I'm a hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and computer geek. As a first responder, I witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events and created a emergency preparedness company to help people be better prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer. I'm going to lock these show notes down, Ian, and then you can't change them, edit them, or screw me up. Because, yeah, this has been going on long enough.
Within 1 minute, I would have had you for sure.
You would have. You still got me to bungle it up.
All right. My name is Ian, and I live on Vancouver Island. I'm a student preparedness, podcast, show note, practical joker, target shooter, and my farm's designated mediocre handyman.
Alan. Huh. I guess we'll go to Jeff.
I'm Jeff. I'm Jeff. I live in Southern Ontario, or Central Ontario, I guess. I'm my home handyman, target shooter, and jack of all trades, but master of none. I was in emergency services for over 32 years, and like Eric, noticed an overabundance of people wanting someone else to do their work for them, and I vowed to not be that guy. I grew up on a small Harvey farm when I was young and learned early about being prepared. And apparently I'm an overall swell guy and a mainstay of the prepper community.
Had to put something in there. Josh?
Oh, there you go.
Hey, I'm Josh. I'm from Central Alberta, and I'm a heavy haul operator trainer up in the oil sands. I've been into prepping for about 10 years. I'm a sport shooter, hunter, and jack of all trades learning kind of a guy. That's about it. And a caster.
Awesome.
All right.
Want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air? You can buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch at prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
We might even use some of the proceeds to get Alan a better internet connection.
Perhaps.
Maybe.
Also, if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes to like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. Also, we want your feedback, good or bad. Or if there's just a topic you want us to cover, you can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some molten content for you in this episode. We're going to start off with some preparedness-related news articles. Next, we'll let you know what we've done for our preparedness since the last episode. And then we're going to get into the main topic, getting the lead out.
Right on.
So let's move into some news.
So I guess we'll skip over Alan's for now until he comes back. But first one I had was basically a article from the Vancouver Sun, which is regarding the Douglas Lake Ranch, and another court case got settled with them. It's the largest ranch in Western Canada, I believe, if not Canada in general. And the latest court case says no public access to Crown Lakes allowed, which is very interesting. So I guess the court settled and said no matter what, the public has no right to access public lands.
Interesting.
Not so
Yeah. So, to give you a bit of background for the listeners that don't know the story is, obviously this ranch is massive, and it stocked a couple lakes of their own with their own fish. But the problem is that the government has legal, I guess, title to those lakes, and so the local fish and game club said, "Listen, we're a fish and game club. We'd like to go fishing on these lakes. Can you at least provide us with just a private, like a path? We'll walk in. We don't have to take a car in or anything, but we'd like to access those lakes, and they're fairly, substantial, good lakes." And the rancher said, nope, private property. And that's when this court case went back and forth now in the court system, I think 3 times now. And basically it's kind of precedent setting because in BC we don't have a public right-of-way law or anything. And the fact is that basically, so for example, southern Vancouver Island here is all private land. So as soon as you get behind the fence of your own property, you're on what amounts to private forestry land. You're not allowed to access any of these lakes behind us on the island. So you got some world-class fishing there that you're not allowed to go to, even though it's government lakes. So it's pretty ridiculous, but I guess with enough legal money thrown behind a rancher, you can get the courts to agree to pretty much anything.
That is interesting.
That is.
Yeah, so that's pretty horrible for outdoorsy people that want to practice their outdoor skills, and then they start selling off land and making it private, and before you know it, you can't access anything. Because, I mean, there's going to be no end to that, right? Like, define private land, right? I mean, there's also...
That's a heck of a way for people to start putting up just a really large cabin beside that lake and, float planes coming in, clients, all that kind of stuff, but the public won't ever access it.
Well,
That's a good point.
For example, say if you just buy land that, across the only road to a lake, I mean, that means that basically they can't access it. or whatever. Like there's all sorts of ways around it, and and I'm not picking on them or anything else, but same thing. If there's a land that's in dispute, such as BC has 110% of the province under land claims right now, and therefore, is it private land? Is it crown land? Whose is it? And in which case now you can't access anything on there. So it's going to be very interesting. Anyway, second article I had was from the Business Insider, and China wants to move 250 million farmers from the countryside to the cities because they figure they're going to have more efficient farms. They don't want all those people in the countryside. They want them clumped into cities to make them nice and easily controllable. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, I mean, if
like
China's doing it, it must be a great idea, right?
Well, it sounds
Really?
like another great leap forward, right? Where they're trying to modernize and urbanize their cities and stuff. And 250 million farmers just yanking them off the land. I can't imagine the productivity of the land is going to immediately keep pace or stabilize or anything else. So,
What could go wrong?
yeah. Again, very interesting. Alan, you had something?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I thought we had already gone past me.
We did.
A Montreal woman is facing $4,100 in fines in an impounded car after she defied curfew and ignored some road closure signs. Now, the road closures were up to detour around a water main break, and I don't know what the result of that was, but the defying curfew part was the really interesting one. She got a number of tickets for being out too late and going in places she shouldn't have gone.
That's interesting because, I wonder if it falls under the Emergencies Act, which hasn't been activated in Canada. It's just a provincial thing right now. Would a curfew be unconstitutional if it's provincial?
Well, I suppose not if you're in that province.
Yeah.
And then, the Emergencies Act gives the provinces a lot of powers.
But it hasn't been actually officially enacted. That's the thing. So it's all provincial dictates right now.
Well, but in Ontario, where they have authority over Ontario. I imagine each province has their own, because we are
they've all declared
self-governing
separate.
provinces.
They've all declared separate states of emergency, right? Which gives them certain powers under different provincial acts. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of challenges in court after everything kind of settles down.
I think that's absolutely correct.
Yeah. So far, I think everybody that's challenged a COVID ticket has won. So
It's because nobody's showing up to court.
yeah, probably. So
they're pretty loath to give up their powers too. So I mean, they're using it for everything.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so I've got one here from Toronto Sun, and I just thought it was kind of a fun one to throw in here because why not? It's in regards to CDC's zombie preparedness rises again during pandemic times. So it's kind of just a funny article. They're trying to kind of add some humor to things and reminding people to have an emergency plan, have a kit, that kind of thing. But they're putting kind of like a zombie sort of spin on it, which bring on 2021 and the zombies.
I mean, what else is there at this point? Like the aliens, I think we've successfully proven that those are around. We got to get something else because we don't do one crisis at a time anymore. Apparently.
No, let's just do them all back to back. Get it out of the way. So next up is zombies. So.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah. Jeff, you had one as well?
Yeah, I just kind of threw in a link there from the Washington Post just about the earthquakes in New Zealand there last week.
Oh, yeah.
They had a group. They had about I think 3 of them in one day, and the biggest one was a magnitude of 8.1. So thank goodness it was hundreds of miles out in the middle of the ocean. They did have a tsunami warning, but nothing really came of it. But had that been 100 or 200 miles closer to land, they'd have been in a world of hurt. So just shows again, you never know when something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, those 3 were in fairly short order too, weren't they? Like 3 in the space of just a few hours or something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's crazy. But thankfully, nothing huge came from it, so that's good.
Yeah, it wasn't a Haiti all over again. So
yeah, that could have gone badly.
Well, shall we move into what we've done lately for preps?
Sure thing.
So for myself, I got out to the local ham repeater site finally. It's been made a couple attempts over the last little while to get out to the site and to see where all the magic happens behind the repeater. So that was fun, and I may have taken over actually looking after one. So we'll see how that pans out. Yeah. So
cool.
There's there's one that's in a little known location that I may or may not have access to. So I'm going to start possibly maintaining that one. So put
Nice.
the advanced ticket to use.
Without giving away OPSEC or anything else, is a backup power supply usually kind of a standard operation with a repeater, or do they just usually rely on grid power or something?
Yeah, the one that I went to, it's got some backup. There's not a lot. There's a couple hours of backup to it. If they had to get further, there are generators around. They could run cables to get it. But for general day-to-day, you got a couple hours for it. And really, where it's located, there's not a lot of power outages, knock on wood. But they've got enough for a couple hours. And if they have to get out there, they can. But
at least they have the ability to plug in a generator and go, right?
Yeah. And then the one that I may or may not be starting to look after has some pretty big diesel generators, so it's fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what does a repeater draw for power?
It's you know what? I'd have to look at the draw. I didn't get into really the details of how much power it was pulling, so I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Do better, Eric.
I know. I helped put in a 220 repeater and put some stuff in a rack, and then we called it a day. So I wasn't going to get pushy and ask for all the specs and details. Who's this new guy that wants to know absolutely everything?
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, you know, I'd have to. I'll get back to you on that one.
All right. Well, for myself, pretty slack week again, I gotta say. Yeah. Well, it just boils down to more chop sawing, getting all the 16-inch lengths of firewood kind of lined up for all the medium-sized stuff. So I did that for like a day, which was a lot, and then ended up burning a bunch of underbrush because trying to beat that burn ban before it happens. I think it's April 1st. Then I can't run any more open fires, so trying to get all that done ahead of time. Took care of some, went to the range 2 weeks ago with the daughter there, and we ended up cleaning it all up this week, and I actually sold everything I picked up already, which is good. So I got actually a box of it here ready to go right now, so yay, free money. See here. Other than that, I got the lockpicking set from Alan in the mail, so that's good. And I started watching some videos, but I have yet to actually break it out and try. So, baby steps. I'm working on it.
One step at a time. Find yourself a cheap padlock and go to town.
Yeah, so other than that, I had a little bit of a minor adventure in the house everybody was laughing at me about here earlier. I tried to save a little money and change my iPhone battery. This is like the fourth battery I think it's gone through, and I was paying $100 a shot to get the battery replaced every time. So I thought I'd save some money. Quote unquote.
I'm still laughing at you, just for the record.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, same here.
So I saved some money. Spent was it $20 or $30 from the Amazon spare battery set, which came with its own tools and everything else. And despite some good instruction from the Island Mentor and watching a few videos, I managed to short out the lithium-ion battery and create a fire that was about 3 seconds of duration that managed to flash up in my face and fill the house with smoke. And luckily, it was on a cookie sheet with a nice little sheet on it, so I was able to heave it outside. Yeah, but that was pretty toxic smoke, I gotta say. That was not cool. But
yeah, lithium does not like to burn. It's nasty. There's nothing class A about those phones.
Yeah, so
no natural materials there.
For the listeners, they could have a little giggle, and that's what was my old iPhone. So it's it's nice and charred now.
Not only are the listeners giggling, so is the panel.
Yeah, that's all right.
How many inches of beard did you lose in the adventure?
Well, actually, yeah, I was actually kind of worried about that for a little bit, but luckily I managed to maintain it. So I didn't have any beard wax in that day, so I guess I was pretty lucky.
Lucky.
Yeah. No, other than that, I don't think really else much was going on. Just a little bit of house maintenance here and there, and just kind of kept her sedate.
So it burned up the rest of your list, is what you're saying?
Well, yeah, I burned up with the rest of the last of my cash too with getting the new iPhone, so that was not cool either.
I've totally been there, done that before. It sucks, but lesson learned.
Well, it's been a couple of weeks since I've been on. Since then, let's see, I took a trip to the more remote parts of the province of Ontario. Stopped in and saw Eric along the way. Picked up my vehicle radios, or well, one might be a vehicle radio, one might be a base station. I'm not sure yet. We'll figure it out as we go. But picked a couple of radios from Eric and delivered some lock goodies to him. Carried on from that trek to go finish my emergency medical responder qualification. So I did that and stopped into Cabela's along the way because I think that's a mandatory stop. Bought myself a new knife because I can. And then What did I do? Yeah, now I'm getting set up to share my first aid knowledge to a wider audience, and I've actually started building some props and stands to be able to practice lockpicking indoor access without actually damaging things that we rely on for security.
Nice.
Got some new tools coming in, and hopefully they show up at some point this week, and I can actually prototype something that I can build here in Canada to do some really interesting things. And when that comes out, we'll probably be able to do a whole episode just on that. So
Awesome.
stay tuned for that.
Good.
Yep. That's me.
Hey.
Josh?
All right. Josh.
Oh, I got a little bit of range time in, tested some loads that I made up. Been doing a little bit of reloading, studying for my ham radio test or for the license. A little bit of rotating and organizing the food, checking those best before dates at the back of the shelf. Found a few that were a little questionable, so I ate those. You know how it goes.
Yep.
That's about it.
Awesome. Hey, Jeff.
Well, I made my monthly trip to Costco and loaded up and spent the weekend doing a bunch of food prepping, getting a bunch of stuff in the freezer. Love my Instant Pot, best invention ever made.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I did also studying for my my ham test. We may be on the same course, Josh. I don't know if you're with Al Sundays and Thursdays.
Haven't booked yet.
Oh, okay. It's good. It's a little difficult for an old person like me who hasn't been in school for 30 years to recapture it, but it's good. I'm getting the hang of it and doing some of my studying tests, so I'm hoping to pass with honors.
Nice.
And thanks again for the resources, Ian. That really helps.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, for anybody that wants extra, I guess, software to help with your ham studying, just drop us an email. We can certainly arrange to get you on there and get you some ham puzzles and some practice tests that actually give you some basic answers and everything else if you don't get it right. And yeah, we've got some good ham study aids if anybody needs some.
Yep. Don't forget, all the questions are publicly available, and those are going to be the questions you're going to get, so take advantage of it.
For sure.
Yep. There's only 900 to memorize, but
Yeah.
Well, that's fine.
if you can do that, you can pass with honors without any trouble.
Just
If it
brute
was
force man.
905, that'd be a problem, but 900 is no problem.
They all start to look the same, right?
Yeah.
They just start to look the same after a while.
Oh,
so
yeah, it's fine. When in doubt, answer C. You'll be fine.
See, B's and C's get degrees.
Oh, boy. Let's move into the main topic.
What do they call the doctor that graduated at the bottom of his class?
Oh, here we go.
Doctor.
I couldn't beat him.
Doctor. There
Yeah.
you go. It doesn't matter where you finish as long as you finish.
That's
This is
right.
true. Yeah. All right, let's move into the main topic, shall we?
All right, so why are we talking about lead and lead smelting? Well, I'm hoping that we're going to find out that there's some cost savings involved. Obviously, there's an ammo shortage going on right now, so any workarounds on this is going to come in handy.
Yep.
Peace of mind knowing that you have like a lifetime supply of lead ingots sitting in the backyard would be a great thing to have, I guess. I'm hoping that during the course of the podcast, we might learn that it's a barterable skill and take it from there. So we brought a couple of subject matter experts on here. One is a reloader, and Josh, I believe, has been working with lead quite a bit.
Yep,
So yeah,
a little
I guess the first things we should talk about, and Alan, this is for you, safety talk. Let's talk about the health risks with lead. Can you tell us what to worry about, what to look out for?
Yeah, we've got, well, obviously there were some people back in the day, they used to solder cans shut, and people went crazy, like on the Franklin Expedition and places like that. So ingestion's a huge hazard. Most of the exposure you're going to get is either through vapor, but that's typically through firing ammunition without good ventilation. But the rest of it's ingestion, so smoking, eating, anything that gets it on your fingers and somehow into your GI tract or wherever. Even skin absorption can be bad, so it's good to use basically latex gloves for handling alloys and things. When you're melting, the lead doesn't get quite hot enough to actually produce the vapors off your pot. But there's another probably more hazardous area with lead in your reloading area, which is your tumbler, because it's dust essentially. So if you don't want to use that inside, but they've done testing where there's a tumbler right there on the table, and they're trying to actually detect the lead that's in the air, and it doesn't go off beside a casting pot, but it will go off like crazy right beside a tumbler. So if you got that thing in the house, you might want to move it out. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I used I started off with the dry media tumbling, then I went over to the stainless steel pins in water, and
Better idea.
It's outside, but actually, yeah, total difference as far as like dust created and everything else, and I feel better about it because I mean, even if you get the water on your hands, it's going to be less I guess, concentrated toxins and easier to wash off, of course, too, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then there's, of course, the whole idea where it's very hot, burny. So you might want to use proper PPE, safety eyewear. When you're melting, if you're melting down and reducing raw products like pipe or wheel weights or anything like that, full coveralls. I've got some stuff set up on a table over here. I'll show you I've got a full face respirator, a P100 that I use because there's foam backing on some of the wheel weights, and that's pretty nasty. Just some of the fumes and smokes that come off that pot, primarily when you're in the first phase of getting it down into ingots, it's pretty foul. So you really want to make sure that you're well ventilated. Even if you're casting inside, it's no problem. But you can use like a range hood or something like that, or you can create a breeze, open up a door, blow a fan across your workbench, stuff like that.
Fair enough. And you mentioned water, I guess. Is there a problem with like water hits lead when it's hot and everything else? How does that react to it? Is steam?
Well, if it's on the surface, it'll skip. But it's when it gets subsurface that's the real problem. If you had a pot of molten metal and then you had a wet wheel weight or something like that, and you threw it in and it's submerged, it creates a steam explosion, which will empty the whole pot right onto the ceiling and into your face. So probably not great.
Probably a good note for potential guys to deal with.
Yeah.
And you mentioned when it was burning stuff off there, like there's actually a bunch of, obviously contaminants before you get pure lead that you got to clear out and everything else. I know that you're going to probably talk about scooping stuff off and everything else, but what's this fluxing all about? How does that work?
Well, it's basically you can use any kind of, not any kind, there's many different things you can use as a reduction agent. And what it'll do is like you could use wax, beeswax, paraffin, sawdust works well. There's a bunch of commercial fluxes, but the idea is that you stir the flux into the melt, and then it binds to the impurities and brings it to the surface. And it also helps to bring the tin, to recombine your tin and other metals in your alloy back in for better castability. So you don't want to waste those. But basically it's to clean the alloy, take away the impurities. And in some cases you can put a bit of flux on top to create a barrier to stop oxidization. So as your pot sits there molten, it'll essentially oxidize on the top and you can prevent it. And that's a very good step to, especially if you're using a bottom pour pot and not breaking that surface tension, to keeping a nice clean pot.
Cool. So yeah, before we get too deep into the rabbit hole here, let's talk about the different types of stuff. So when you're scrounging stuff, you're going to come across a bunch of metals that you're looking to use. Can you tell us or talk briefly about differences between like tin pewter, what is antimony or antimony? I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah.
And problems with zinc and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I'll just flip you around here. I've got a little bit of a table set up. So there's a bunch of stuff that you can get. So this is going to be basically berm mining, this reclaimed lead, range gold, basically. You can reduce that. You've got your clip-on wheel weights here, and these are the stick-on wheel weights. These are going to be more pure lead. And then this is stuff I've melted into ingots. These are going to be, 6 pounds, 8 ounces. So these are roughly 1 pounders. So that's the two most common places you can get easy access to metals. But the thing is that there's a million places to get it. You can go and you can get stuff from scrap metal recyclers. It's pretty pricey depending on spot price. I think I sent you a link, Ian, for spot pricing in Canada.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so it depends on what you're buying and if they'll want to deal with you as a private citizen or not. That's definitely one way to go. All the rest of the options are finding just those little deals in garages and people will have. It's found in the weirdest spots. Sometimes estate sales, pipe, all the rest of that stuff. Lead sailboat keels in your area, maybe.
Yeah, actually, I'd heard some rumblings about that, but I heard it's like a 1,500-pound chunk, which sounds great, but I don't know how you rip it out and
split it. I don't know. Some people use an axe. Yeah. Well, people have varying methods for doing it, but it's usually brute force, either that or a tiger torch and some kind of a catchment system to kind of just get it into chunks. But yeah.
Break out the air chisels.
Yeah, pretty much. Some of the other metals you were talking about, I guess I'll go back for a walk again. I can't. I think it's breaking up here. Yeah. So yeah, tin and pewter. I've got it set and made into these little cookies that you can add into your pot. But basically, the beer steins that you have with the glass bottom, you can just cut them up with tin snips, and you can weigh them up and throw them into your pot. And it basically sweetens up your mix so that your molds fill out better. You can also buy it the most expensive way possible, like this, the old solder. But it's pretty expensive stuff. So.
Awesome. So, and what's the antimony or antimony?
Yeah, antimony is usually found in clip-on wheel weights, and it's one of the reasons that clip-ons are so popular is because it allows people to water drop and harden their wheel weights. So lead without, or lead alloy without antimony will not harden. But if you were to take a clip-on wheel weight alloy and you were straight from the mold, you were to drop it in a bucket of water, it gives it great hardness, and people would use that for more Magnum handgun or rifle rounds, just to get that characteristic. Or buckshot is great hardened. Most high quality shot, like pheasant shot, is for shotguns is usually high antimony, so that it deforms less in a pattern, and that's why clip-ons are so desirable, because of the ability to quench them.
And so basically, just as soon as you cast them, you just drop them straight into water.
You literally drop them into water. Yep.
Interesting. What's the problem with zinc? So some wheel weights have zinc on them, right?
Well, some wheel weights are zinc, yeah. So there's a great big mix with wheel weights. There's iron. There's some that are some kind of weird composite, like a foam type thing that smoke really bad when you miss them. And then there's the zinc. So zinc, it has a high melting temperature, about 800 and some degrees. And the danger is that you miss them when you're sorting your wheel weights from lead from different types, because it'll basically go in and turn your melt into oatmeal, and it's unusable if you miss it.
Yeah, and I heard
So you
it
don't
also
wanna
makes
miss
it makes it a little
No.
too hard or something as well, if it does happen to get in there, if you end up using a tiny bit or whatever, right?
Well, like I say, it just ends up so doesn't have very good castability. And people are making bullets out of it, though. Like they'll separate it out, and I've always tossed the stuff I got. But people are using it, well, for cannonballs and for bullet casting in areas where lead's getting hard to find, or there's some kind of a legislation against lead bullets. Yeah. But it's higher temperature casting, and it's got its own peculiarities to it.
Well, and I heard it's a little harder on the rifle barrels, too.
Can we go back to cannonballs real quick here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me everything about that.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can buy a mold for anything, right?
Pretty much, yeah. But I mean, guys are shooting everything out of cannons, like they're filling pop cans with cement and all kinds of stuff for shot. But yeah, great big zinc cannonballs and stuff. I don't have or shoot a cannon, but I read a little bit about it, and it looks like fun. Got to try that. Yeah, for sure.
A cannon.
Yeah. I like it.
Well, completely legal, muzzle loading. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can buy fuse almost anywhere. So. Yeah. Or anvil tossing. That looks pretty good.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll talk after the show.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did how did it go? Like when I'm walking around, does it cut out on your end? Because I've got my little table set up here
good.
Okay, perfect. So I'll turn it around. So I'll go back to the lead if you got a second for this part of it. But
absolutely.
Okay, I'm just gonna flip it around here. So all these bars, these are made in an angle iron mold that I had a welder buddy make, and I can do about a 6-pack of these in a shot. And I use a 30-pound turkey cooker, like a 30-pound propane tank cutoff with a traditional turkey deep frying stand to actually melt all this lead down. But it starts as this, and actually I'll move around here. Here's a couple buckets of the good stuff yet, but it starts out like that, and that bucket could be anywhere from 25% to 50% to 75% lead, depending on the mix, because all the different types we spoke about, the zinc, the iron, all those wheel weights are all mixed. So I hand sort them. Some people will just throw them all in a pot and float them, because a steel one like this will float on lead. So it just floats out. But if you get it too hot, and it's hard to keep your temperature exact with the turkey fryer, you'll melt that zinc like I was talking about. So it's best to hand sort it all.
Gotcha.
But yeah, and these are damn near pure lead. So you'd want to use this for shotgun slugs, like these, for instance. They recommend pure lead for this. And for, say, buckshot like these, you're going to want that clip-on wheel weight. So everything's got its own application. This is 22 caliber F buckshot. since Ian was looking at shotgun molds, I decided to lay these ones out. These are the Sharpshooter brand that's probably not available anymore.
Yeah, they're no longer being made, supposedly.
Yeah. And so this is a thing, if you're going shotgun shot molding, you probably need a little clipper like this to cut the sprues off. It's the handiest thing ever. Slug molds for making these. This is about maybe a $50 mold. But sorry? Go ahead.
I think we're losing Ian. Yeah, he's gone. Yeah.
Okay.
He'll be back in a second, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. Well, that's kind of that part of it anyways. You guys can take it over.
So the whole idea is you identify your different metals, sort them out. Once you find the metal that you want to use to make your bullet out of, you heat it in your turkey fryer setup. Yeah. And then pour it into the mold it the way you want. And is that basically the rundown, or?
It's a few steps short. So there's the step where you've got your raw metal here, and then you put it into your turkey fryer and you get it to here, to the ingot. And then you want to take it over to here. This is your melter, your melting pot. So you'd only want clean metal going into this.
Gotcha.
So this is about 20 pounds inside here, and it's got a bottom pour. I can show you down here. So that's how I prefer this type of pot. But this over here is just a top dipping type of pot as well. So both are electric, but that's the two basic options. You can use just a camp stove really and an iron pot if you want to. It doesn't have to be high tech. They've been doing this ever since there's been firearms for hundreds of years. They started out on a wood fire, so it's as high or low tech as you want to go.
Okay. Yeah, my dad used to reload years ago, and that he used the camp stove and the iron pot and just the hand pour.
Yeah. And you produce perfectly uniform, good ammunition that way as well. There's another step with it, like you can get as intricate as you want, but all these, I'll flip around again, all these different projectiles and stuff that I've got here are different purposes. These are, say, 9mm, and you've got your rifle bullet. This one's a 312 for, say, an SKS or something similar to that. And powder coated, that's another big thing, but this is a gas checked bullet. So this is going to go be pushed a little faster, but you don't need super fancy. You can go pretty basic, right?
Well, good to know.
Now, would you intentionally get away from pure lead and alloy it with something else, or would you try and keep it as close to just lead as you can?
Oh no, absolutely. Pure lead's a specialized thing. Alloys are for everything else. The lead is kind of what everybody calls it, but yeah, the pure lead, actually you'll blend it off. You'll mix it at perhaps a 30-to-1 ratio, or depending on what you're doing, that's lead to tin, 30-to-1. That's a soft for say a hunting bullet or something. But usually, no, you're never going to use pure lead for much other than, say, slugs or muzzle loaders, typically. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is there anything? I mean, is there any other way to kind of tweak your process to kind of get a customized projectile?
For sure, absolutely. So you can go from first thing by getting the right alloy. You can pretty much customize that. You can do the things. I've got these colors going on here. I guess I don't know if you can really see it, but these are all. This is powder coating, and that's another massive step in the right direction for kind of modernizing the process, because it now can eliminate a lot of the vapors we were speaking about. When you shoot, you'll get smoke, and a lot of that's the lube burning that you'll put on the bullets to basically help obturation and seal the bore. But the powder coating is starting to allow, in the last few years of other people's experimentation, I'm not an expert, but I do look into it, and it's basically stopping a lot of the leading issues. It's reducing the need for gas checks, and it's making it a little safer because you're not handling the actual lead projectile. Your hands don't get as dirty, and you're not getting basically grease and wax everywhere as you handle your ammunition. So powder coating is one of those things.
What's the powder made out of? Is it just like a bake-on kind of material, or is it?
Yeah, literally a baked-on material. It's the same stuff you'd use for car rims. I think a lot of them are polyester-based, but you can get any color you want. I currently use green, blue, purple, that kind of a thing. And it just bakes on in a toaster oven. I literally started with just a little toaster oven, then graduated up to a large countertop oven, so I could have double-decker batches going. And then I started making a jig in these little pans, so I could have 6 pans on the go, and I would have a jig so I could fill each one and kind of get production going a little quicker. As long as you can hit 400 degrees, it works.
Now, does
So
that powder
going to
coating
be
affect the diameter?
It does. It'll bump you up about 2 thou. But it depends on how you do your steps, because with cast bullets, fit is everything. So you have to go through and slug your bore with a pure lead slug to determine your groove diameter. And then you want to go, as a rule of thumb, about 1,000th higher than that to get good sealing and obturation and prevent leading. So if you just take a sized bullet, say this one would be 357, and then you coated it, it'd probably be 358, 359. But if you coat it first and then size it, it slicks right through the sizing die, and your finished diameter is your finished diameter. So I personally did coat first, size second.
Interesting.
No, that's really interesting. So yeah, back to the the melting process. I kind of dropped out the internet there for about 5 minutes. Did we talk about that already?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, mostly the scrap, the converting scrap to ingots and that mostly. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah. Any specialized, like as far as a melting pot goes? I've seen people use cast iron pans and like production pots from Lee and everything else. Do you use something particular?
Yeah, you bet. I'm going to take a walk back over to my spot here. Actually, I'll just drag my stool with me. Probably easier. So yeah, this is the one I've got. I was already kind of showing this, but again, this one's an RCBS 20-pounder. So it's a bottom pour. It's loaded right now, but it's got molten alloy in it. I had to reduce some stuff. And this is a Lyman Big Dipper. But as I was noting before, that it doesn't have to be this complex, but this bottom pour option is great for if you were to do buckshotty and you probably want something similar to this. You can just screw this open, and then you can literally pour lead out of the bottom into your multi-cavity mold. It's probably the fastest, most efficient way of doing it.
Excellent.
And then this is another huge step in the process that's pretty simple. You got a lot of stuff around your home that you can use for casting. None of this is hot, just this. So just a simple hot plate will speed up and make your life so much easier, because it preheats everything. If you're done with a mold, you can set it on there and it stays mostly warm. So because if your mold cools down when you're working, then you have to restart and get it up to temperature again. And that also is a safety feature, because if you take an ingot that had some moisture trapped somewhere in it, and you were to throw it directly into this pot, that steam explosion or the tinsel fairy showing up at your door would be avoided. So preheating is huge.
The tinsel fairy sounds so harmless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of.
Yeah.
But no. The rest of this stuff I've got here is sizing equipment. So this is a Lyman sizer. It has a reservoir in the back in here that'll take sticks like this inside, and it'll grease the grooves on the bullets as it sizes them. And it'll also apply the gas check, which is this portion of the bullet. So it will grease it and size it at the same time. And there's a die in here of whatever diameter you want, and a separate nose punch for whatever profile. But for powder coating, this is much easier. This is the Lee. So I've got a bullet lined up on it right now, and it's simple. You would just push it through. If that was bolted down, it would work a lot better. And it goes up, and it catches in the container, and you fill the container only halfway, or else you'll spill it everywhere. Ask me how I know. But
awesome. And so the gas checks are just to create a gas seal and get a better propulsion behind the bullet, right?
You bet. So the main cause of leading in a rifle's barrel or a pistol's barrel is gas cutting, and it's basically cutting behind this ring and around this ring. So that's the purpose of this grease. And if you've got that gas check on there, it allows you to push it to a higher velocity, as well as having the right lubrication on there. But as I was noting before, these two are both 30 caliber, but this coating may eliminate the need for all of this grease and possibly the gas check too.
All right. And so as far as casting goes, you can also make, like we were talking cannonballs, but you can make like fishing weights. You can make all sorts of everything for like. You
bet. Right here. This for all you big sea bar fishermen. Here's a weight for your triangle bar weights. And here's another one for smaller Alberta style jackfish sinkers. So yeah, you can make all of this kind of stuff pretty easily.
That's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, and then of course you've got all the little things that go with it. I mean, you've got tools and all the little things that go with it. But I mean, gloves are pretty key. You know, welder's gloves, and of course my fancy P100. You have to have that for smelting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I guess, you don't want to stick with just like a little dust mask, and then you want to make sure that's good and solid sealed, just like anything else, right?
Yeah, and well, this one it eliminates the need for a face shield. I mean, I've peeled all kinds of lead off the faceplate of this thing. Better than out of my forehead, right?
Well, exactly. It's a little bit of broken or melted plastic's no big deal, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, so
No doubt.
assuming that we don't want to like cast, or maybe this is a little too much for a lot of people. If you end up scrounging or finding a lead supply and you melt some down into some ingots, is it possible to sell this stuff?
Absolutely. Ingots are worth probably $1 a pound to $1.50 a pound without shipping. You can sell cleaned ingots for, but the problem is it kind of roots back to the zinc thing that I mentioned before. People who do this a fair bit, they're pretty wary of other people's melting habits, and if they haven't properly sorted and cleaned, if they're buying contaminated product, basically. So if ensuring that you have clean wheel weight ingots there, $1 to $1.50 a pound, depending on where you are, if you can find it. I traded probably 1,000 pounds worth of lead off so far, and I've gotten all 3 presses that are sitting on my bench right now in trade, so it's got excellent barter value.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really, it's kind of like using other people's reloads. Same thing. It's a little wariness involved with that, right?
Yeah, well, and the thing is you'll never know until you melt it and try it. It's not like it's going to explode on you. It's just going to not work.
So now, assuming you do a little bit of range scrounging in the berm there, and you pick up a couple, spent bullets that have like the copper jacketing on them, you melt them down. The copper floats to the top, right?
Yeah, you bet. But if you've got the encapsulated kind, you just crack them with a pair of pliers to expose the core, so that it'll basically drain out.
Now, with that copper, I know copper's got a higher melting temperature as well as brass and everything else. Is it worth your time to even try and melt that into ingots, or just sell it by the bucket, or is there?
No, well, I wouldn't bother personally. I mean, the spot price is high, but the fact is that it's you almost have to have a backyard kiln set up,
Okay.
like an actual smelting setup, and yeah, it would take you so much time and so much propane and everything else, man.
Yeah, I see those guys with there's like an old crock pot that's been converted into a propane burning kind of mini kiln or something. And it seems like, they're putting a lot of energy out there just to get a brass ingot or something.
Well, and it's cool. I mean, really, I think it's on a mini project scale. It's awesome, but I'd love to build one. But I mean, I don't think it's really worthwhile. I mean, if you're going to cast your own cool stuff in sand or whatever you're doing, awesome. But yeah, even guys that are using cartridge brass and stuff like that, it looks excellent. But I don't think it has much for paying potential, I guess.
That's fair enough. So roughly, any idea what it's costing you for like a round of buckshot or a slug versus like store bought if you're casting yourself?
Well, with component and powder prices today, I mean, it's a little bit crazy. I mean, I'm seeing $65 a pound for powder where I'm at. So I used to be able to, my old calculation was maybe 20 cents, but it depends on how you do it. Because if you're counting a shell, an empty, or not.
Well, because I mean, like, so you pick up a lot of these shells and or brass cartridges at the range and everything else, but right now they're charging like about $1.50 or almost $2 a shot for slugs, and at least $1 around on a good day for buckshot. So I guess there's still some savings there. Well,
you can probably do it for a quarter.
Yeah.
Realistically,
Yeah.
Depending, if you're one of those guys that wants to pay himself his working rate, $20, $25, $50 an hour, whatever to reload, well, can't help you.
You're losing money, yeah. Like, I had that discussion with a buddy of mine too. He's like, well, my normal hourly wage is like $65 an hour. I'm like, yeah, but you're not working right now. So I mean, like, that only works 8 hours a day. So, the rest of the time it's just, if you're saving money, you're just not spending money at least. So, last thing I want to talk about is like actual like a shotgun shot dripper, like where they drop it into the fabric softener and water mix and stuff. Have you ever played with one of those at all?
No, I haven't. I've been watching some of the same videos you have probably, and the Littleton shot maker, the crazy Russian guy. That looks interesting. They have some pretty low tech stuff, but it looks pretty effective.
Yeah, they're basically just taking like what amounts to nuts and bolts, drilling holes through them, and then judging by the size of the holes and how they roll it down a ramp into the water,
Yeah.
they're creating their own buckshot, which is the original way they used to do it back in the 1800s, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, like for the price of what they're charging for like lead shot nowadays, and that's the biggest cost right now is the projectiles, whether it be bullets or shot shells. I figure it might be something worth looking at down the road myself. So.
Oh, for sure. And from a prepper point of view, I mean, having the ability to make it doesn't mean you necessarily are going to do it every weekend or whatever, but just to know you can is excellent. I mean, if you could get something like number 4 birdshot made in your own backyard, well, that's a pretty big advantage because that's pretty versatile.
Yeah, no, I thought it was kind of a neat subject to talk about for sure.
Mm-hmm. Even on the shot shell reloading front, part of the advantage to the molds and the projectiles I was showing you back there, they're a little different than a factory-made shell because they'll use a trap or a field load wad. So they're basically a sub-gauge slug. So they'll fit, instead of being like a cylinder bore, an actual true diameter slug that just rips down the barrel with like spacer wads behind them. These ones are actually in a commonly available shot cup. So now you're not getting leading in your bore. You can actually, you can load them up exactly like a trap shell. People will take cheap Walmart shells. They'll open up the crimp, pour the lead into their mold, basically, heat it up, pour it back, and then just put it back with that same load into that same shot shell and recrimp it and fire it.
That's actually a really good idea. I never thought of that.
Yeah,
That's
that
pretty
works.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So accuracy, want to talk quickly about with your own bullets. Like, so is it?
Yes, we're losing it again. We're getting into accuracy
normally
as far as
Factory
doing this.
ammo better? What's your thoughts?
Well, it really does depend. I mean, you're trying to compare it with premium jacketed ammo. You can get on par, probably minute of angle with it. I mean, if you're finicky enough to play with it. It depends on your use. If you're looking for high velocity, whiz bang, super sniping accuracy, if that's even such a thing, well, it's possible. But I mean, as far as just somebody pouring practice loads and stuff, I mean, you can do minute of angle at 100 yards, 200 yards? Yeah, for sure. It's possible without too much work.
And if we're starting to look for like setting this up at our own place, where would we be looking for molds and such? Is there a certain spot you like to go to?
Well, yeah, there's a kind of a clearinghouse of stuff. I don't know if I can promote a website on your
absolutely. Yep, go for it.
So castbullets.gunloads.com is the best resource for pretty much all things casting. I've spent tons of time there learning, and those guys are a lot of fellows with a lot of years. And there's a swapping and selling section. It's primarily U.S. oriented, but they've got information on group buys from a Slovakian mold maker. The company's Mihec, and he makes beautiful brass multi-cavity molds. He also makes clone molds of other companies' stuff that's either out of production or whatever, but premium molds there. And Lyman, Lee, of course, makes a decent mold, and they're very commonly available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And lots of information out there. Like if you can find a mentor, somebody who's already doing it, like somebody mentored me probably 10, 15 years ago, a provincial level shooter here in black powder. And he was very, very good at just getting a person into the door, showing you how to do it. I mean, if you can find somebody in your area to help you out, it makes all the difference.
That's kind of the key for anything in the preparedness world is find someone that can show you the way and learn from them. So it's
for sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed when my dad sold his place. Had I known then what I know now, we sold a bunch of his molds and all that stuff. I would have hung on to them. So, like he had, I mean, you name it, he had it: 45s, 40s, 38s, 380s. He had dozens of them.
Yeah.
wow.
And they're like anything else. I mean, they have expiry date if they're not taken care of, like any piece of equipment, and rust can ruin them. But if they're looked after, like all mine take a bath in fluid film after I'm done with them. And they're good years later if I never touch that particular one again. So.
What are we looking at cost-wise for like equipment, molds, and all that, just roughly?
Sky's the limit. No. Well, it is. It's the rabbit hole, right? I think I actually bought a lot of my stuff used initially. I sold a rifle I wasn't using and bought a casting package with that pot and everything. And for $500, I had 4 multi-cavity molds and a melter and a few of the small tools. I've probably got $1,000 into it or better by now, but really, who's counting? It's probably more.
Fair enough.
But you can go basic. Doesn't have to be that bad.
Okay. Yeah, but like you said, once you get going down that rabbit hole, then hide the bank card and hide the Visa card, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Or you, like you said, you can trade and swap stuff too, right? So
it's
the option
huge.
there for
Well,
that.
there is one problem with it, though. You're the guy at the range who shows up and your buddy brings 2 boxes of shells and you show up with a Folgers can. Yeah, you kind of look like a dick if you don't share. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
All right. What else do we have here? As far as resources, I think we touched on that. As far as websites to go to, any kind of books or anything else like that you would suggest outside of websites, or?
For sure, absolutely. The Lyman Cast Bullet Handbook has been around for, 50 years or so, but it's very comprehensive, as well as Lee's Modern Reloading. They've got a whole section with excellent data on pretty much every common cartridge you can imagine with cast bullets, and that's pretty huge.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's one more thing. It's a sticky, but it's actually from a fellow from the LA Shooting Club. It's called From Ingot to Target. It's about that thick when you print it, because I did. And it's everything you need to know, melting from ingot to target. It's very comprehensive. You can get guys that have 50 years experience. They'll tell you. They're happy to share.
Excellent.
Awesome.
What else? What else do we need to know as new casters? What's the last little bit of what we should do?
Scrounge quickly.
All right.
Well, actually, I kind of wonder, like, are gun ranges usually receptive to you, like, going and, you ask them ahead of time, going and digging in the berms on, like, when the range is closed one day or something?
It's 50-50. I mean, they probably had bad experiences with somebody tearing up the berms like a badger and just leaving it in rough shape. If you know somebody, a lot of them are really, really good, as long as you're showing that you're that guy who will repair and not abuse it. Some of them are good. Other ones, they'll if they catch you doing it unauthorized, they'll run you right off the range. I never have had that happen, but I know it does.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
Because I got a couple berms of my place that are like sand anyway right now. It would be hard to like shovel it right back up where you found it and sift it into a wheelbarrow and everything else. But
I built a screener over a wheelbarrow. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Huh. Interesting. I think that's pretty much all we had, didn't we?
Yeah, we've got one question in the live chat here. I'll throw up. It's just from Terry. He's just asking, and we'll go back to tumbling and everything. When you talk of lead hazard from tumbling, is there any issue with tumbling your brass?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly where it comes from. Whether you're using jacketed ammunition factory, whatever it is, sometimes there's lead styphnate in the primers. Depending on which brand you're using, there might be lead from the priming compound, and that's exactly where it comes from. Is tumbling your brass with dry media.
Right.
So it's dust.
Short answer is yes. There is a hazard with that, and you should be using all your proper PPE while you're doing anything involving making metal dusty.
Yeah.
Cool. Before I forget, Terry, drop us an email when you can. Just want to ask you a quick question, if you don't mind.
Ooh, you're in trouble, Terry.
Oh, that's it.
Do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, you're in trouble now, Terry.
We've been
All
called
right. Let's see here. That's right. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think we covered everything off. At least a basic walkthrough of this, anyways, to help get people started.
Oh, that's great. That's a lot more than I knew when we started the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, something tells me we'll have to get you back on for part 2.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure we will.
Anyway.
I foresee a lot of questions coming into the inbox after this episode, so for sure we'll have to get you back in.
Sounds good.
I'm sure we will.
Sounds good.
Podcast challenge time?
Sure. So your podcast challenge for this week: see if you can find a free source of scrap metal in your area. Check out your tire shops. Check out your scrap yards. Check out wherever you might be able to find it. See if there's see if you can get access to it.
And I heard
One quick note.
Yep.
Sorry, stay away from batteries. No play. No good.
Battery's
Yeah,
bad. Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny because it used to be lead acid. Now I guess it's NiCad or it's all changed, right?
Even if there is lead, it's not worth the chemical exposure. And
Yeah, there's a lot of bad gas in batteries.
I heard dental film is also a source, but that's a pretty mediocre and tedious, time-consuming version.
Are you meaning like as in shielding from X-ray rooms and walls? Or
Ooh.
that's a good one, actually. It's dead soft.
Oh, we never even thought of that.
and isotope containers as well. They're about that big around, that tall, and about 5 pounds of pure goodness. Dead soft.
She like the you get the little lead.
Yeah, I think we're losing Ian again. We're getting bits and pieces of his pigeons, and that's about it. So. All right. Upcoming events. Nothing again. COVID.
Damn you.
Yep.
Damn
is
you,
what it
COVID.
is. Yep. So.
But we do have a deal of the week.
We do.
And our deal of the week comes from Best Buy. I don't know if this is an in-store as well or just a web-only promotion, but Best Buy has a 2-pack of Cobra Refurb FRS radios, $35 for the pair. Now, my Cobra radios are getting close to 15 years old, and they still work just as well as the day I bought them. The batteries are long gone, but they take just three AA's, and they're ready to rock.
There you go.
And they actually do right now. They're selling for like $75 a pair, so it's half off.
There you go.
Yeah, that's right.
And if they're factory refurb, who cares?
Yeah. Hey. All right, so moving to some shout-outs.
I got nothing.
Nope, nothing.
Well, I'll shout out Josh. Thanks for coming on. This was hugely informative.
Well, thanks very much for the invite, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Email and iTunes reviews. Big blank on that one. Nobody emailed this week. Wah, wah. And no new iTunes reviews. Yeah. And I haven't complained about 1 stars in a while, and we haven't gotten any, so. Okay.
I can leave it that one if you want.
Yeah, no, let's just leave it the way it is. No need for me to go on tangents about 1 stars, because I haven't done it in a while, so. Well, with that, I will bring episode number 108 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or, of course, your favorite podcast app. Please help us out. Submit a review. It does help other people find us. As long as it's not a 1 star.
We do record... Yeah, we do that. We do record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want an early peek at the shows, find us on either of those media under the Canadian Prepper Podcast. And click the notifications tab. That gives you an alert when we are going live. If you want to get a hold of me directly, it's Alan, that's with 1 L, at prepperpodcast.ca.
So if anybody wants to get a hold of Jeff or Josh, you can send an email into feedback@prepperpodcast.ca, and I will make sure that it gets directed to them.
All right, you can reach Ian directly by emailing me at thewesternretreat@gmail.com. And now on Gab, at The Western Retreat. Just a reminder, I started the Gab page, Self-Reliance and Homesteading Canada. We've got 3 listeners on there. We need more. And then you can also find me on Canadian Patriot Podcast on iTunes and YouTube. There you can find us discussing why government waste in society makes me consider scrounging for lead.
There it is.
There you go.
All right, Josh and Jeff, thank you very much for coming out this evening. I appreciate your information and your knowledge, and being willing to come out and share it is great, because I'm sure it helps all the listeners out. So much appreciated, and I'm sure I'll have you back when a few more questions come in, or if you want to come back and join us on another episode, as always, you're welcome to come join. So you can check me out at rapidsurvival.com. You can get me there while on the live chat while you're buying some prepper gear. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. So thanks for joining us this evening, and until next time, be prepared, stay safe.
Get some better internet, Ian.